There are some places where history doesn't simply sit quietly in the background. It seems to cling to the walls, hide in the shadows, and wait patiently for someone to come along and notice it. And Kirkby Stephen, tucked away in the glorious Eden Valley, is absolutely one of those places. My day began inside Kirkby Stephen's wonderful parish church. And what a place to begin. There's been a church on this site since at least the Anglo-Saxon period, and the present building contains layer upon layer of history, from the medieval period right through to Victorian alterations. But I wasn't here simply to admire the architecture. I'd come to see something rather more unusual, something horned, something devilish, something with a rather intriguing connection to the Norse past of this part of northern England. The Loki Stone. This extraordinary carved stone is generally dated to around the 10th century and is thought to be part of an Anglo-Danish cross shaft. Carved upon it is a strange bearded figure with what appear to be horns, his limbs seemingly bound. And this is where things get really interesting. The figure has traditionally been identified as Loki, the Norse god of mischief and trickery. In Norse mythology, Loki was eventually bound as punishment for his role in the death of Balder. With venom dripping from a serpent above him, the image on the stone has consequently been interpreted as Loki bound and tormented. But this, and this is important, we cannot say with absolute certainty, is Loki. It's also been interpreted as simply as a bound devil. And there are alternative theories about what the carving represents, and personally I rather like that uncertainty, because here we have a stone created more than 1,000 years ago, carrying an image which may preserve a fragment of the old Norse mythology of the reason, and no one can tell us for certain what the person who carved it actually intended. And that to me is part of the magic of ancient stone. And the Loki Stone isn't alone. Scattered around the church are other remarkable survivals from earlier buildings, earlier centuries, fragments from Anglo-Danish crosses, pieces of medieval carved stonework, Norman capitals, and even the remains of a hogback stone, all reminders that this has been a very sacred place for a very, very long time. Then there are the people who came afterwards, because if you love old churches, you know that sometimes the dead have left us the best history. Here are medieval tombs and effigies of knights, noblemen and their wives, including the magnificent late 16th century tomb of Thomas Wharton, the first Baron of Wharton, and his two wives. There are also earlier effigies of members of the powerful Musgrave family, including Sir Richard Musgrave, who died in 1409. These aren't simply decorative pieces of stone, they're portraits of people who lived hundreds of years ago, people who had families, wealth, status, ambition and troubles of their own, and who are now remembered largely because someone carved their likeness into stone. Standing beside them, you really do get that extraordinary sense of time stretching backwards. Then, as I finally made my way towards the door, I discovered something else which raised my spirits. My second favourite kind of beer, a lovely coffin cart. I've developed something of an unhealthy enthusiasm for these wonderful old pieces of funerary history. And finding one sitting there by the door was the perfect way to conclude my visit inside the church. Outside, I have to admit, I was a little disappointed. The churchyard has undergone landscaping, which has left the gravestones gathered sadly around the perimeter, and for someone like me, wandering among old stones is rather the point. Still, nil desperandum, because Kirkby Stephen had one more piece of dark history waiting for me. I only had to walk a short distance from the church to reach the Old Corpse Road, the wonderful old crossing known as Frank's Bridge or the Coffin Bridge. This picturesque stone bridge crosses the River Eden and dates from the 17th century. But it was more than simply a convenient way to cross the river. It formed part of the old route along which the dead were brought from places such as Hartley and Winton for burial in Kirkby Stephen. At the end of the bridge, there are the wonderfully evocative coffin stones, places where pallbearers could rest the coffin during that long and solemn journey. Just imagine the scene, a procession making its way through the countryside, the coffin carried between the mourners, the sound of footsteps, perhaps prayers being whispered, and eventually the bearers stopping here beside the river, lowering their burden onto the stone and taking a moment to rest before continuing to the church. It's easy to see why places like this become wrapped in folklore. And this bridge has its own ghostly tale. It's said to be haunted by a woman known as Jangling Anna. According to legend, Anna was imprisoned at nearby Hartley Castle. She escaped while still wearing her chains, hence the rather wonderful name, and was drowned while attempting to escape while crossing the river. Her ghost, supposedly, can still be encountered around the bridge. And whether you believe the story or not, there's something wonderfully atmospheric about standing beside an ancient bridge, knowing that for generations people carried their dead across it. The bridge is beautiful, the river peaceful, the countryside glorious, and yet when you know what happened here, what people once believed about places like this, it becomes just a little bit harder to see it as simply a pretty footbridge. It becomes part of the landscape of the dead.